So welcome to the National Gallery. My name is Fiona and I am part of the learning team here. And we're very honoured to have Stephen here, SJ Fowler here this evening.
Hello.
Poet extraordinaire, poet, writer, etc. here to regale us with some of his poetry.
Prepared to be regaled.
Be very regaled, but also students and guests that we have as well. So please be generous with everybody. So we're going to do a little bit of a tour. We're going to start over on this side here and then make our way through. We're not going that far, so we should be all okay. And are you ready to begin? Should
Let's
we go over
to the Goya.
Let's go.
Please, feel free to come close. We don't know how to get
Okay, so just to give you a bit of intro into the kind of format we're going to use, I'm going to give you a brief introduction to the painting and then I will hand over to Stephen. So this is a painting, I mean, I'm not really sure how many of you are familiar to the gallery itself collection. For some of you, this may be the first time coming into this space or room. And actually, let me just find out, is anyone coming here for the first time? Is this the first visit for anyone? Okay, everyone has been here. That's amazing. Do people know this painting at all? Does anyone recognise or know this painting? There was a film a couple of years ago that was inspired by this painting, the painting of the Duke. And this is a painting of the Duke of Wellington, Arthur Wellesley, and he was the first Duke of Wellington. He was actually the Prime Minister on 2 occasions here, so I don't know how much you know your kind of history there. But this, we see him here, has been painted by the Spanish artist Goya. And Goya at the time was a court painter, and I'm sure this would have been, he would have requested that Goya paint him. But this is at a great kind of conflict during this time in Europe. And actually, the Duke of Wellington had just defeated the French, and he'd kind of been victorious going into Spain, into Madrid. This was the Peninsular Wars. And actually, when we look very closely, and Stephen, we were discussing this earlier, weren't we? He actually looks quite tired. He looks a bit exhausted. He's been battling, he's been fighting. And even though we have all of this regalia that we see here in terms of the brightness of that crimson red with all of his awards there that he's wearing, there is something about him that almost looks as if he's being kind of propped up. He looks very, very tired. The other thing to note, apparently he was actually quite a small man. But we were discussing earlier that in comparison to what, in comparison to was he small in our standard, or was he small actually during the period that he was living? So you can see that Goya has tried to almost elevate his status here in terms of how he has been painted. So the gallery acquires this in 1961, and not very long afterwards, it is taken from the gallery, so it's actually stolen. And the painting is missing for around 4 years. So nobody knows where this painting is. And then about 4 years later, a man by the name of Kempston Bonton, he goes to see Scotland Yard and says, actually, I've had enough of this. I've had the painting for the last 4 years. There was, that's what we were just mentioning at the beginning. I bought the painting. It's in a locker in Birmingham New Street Station, and so they discovered who had this painting. But what was interesting, wasn't it, in a kind of weird quirk of the law, he didn't actually get done for stealing the painting because he said he never intended to keep the painting. He actually got done on the charges of the frame because the frame was never recovered.
Injustice.
It's really, this painting goes missing, a National Gallery, etc. And actually, he doesn't get done with the painting. But then, in a kind of twist of the tale, a few years later, his son actually comes forward and says, actually, it was me who did it. So it's a very interesting story, because I'm just going to say one more thing about it, which I find fascinating. Apparently he was meant to have taken the painting out the toilet window, but he was, by all accounts, very tall, quite a wide-set man. So I think it would have been quite tricky for him to have done that. So it does actually make sense that even though it was his idea, it was his son who actually acted it out. And he was protesting against the TV license for older people. So this is what he was doing.
I thought I was weird.
That was what he was protesting about. So I think sometimes if paintings could talk, you know, we'd have a very interesting story.
Yes.
But on that note, I'm going to hand you over to our poet extraordinaire. So,
we've all had trouble with the toilet windows. And if he looks tired, then what do all of you have? Thank you for coming on a Friday late. People at the back, please feel free to listen and be quiet. It's my time. This is The Duke of Wellington by Francisco de Goya. I have no interest in your bed sheets or what goes on between them. For I am nicknamed Iron in the early 19th century. Let that settle in. I am the scum identifier. I am so austere that in writing this poem today, it started to hail with dignity. You all may turn as you like, for I have seen your backs before, and I am in my being against your jelly and showing you up as a human pillow, as a soft-boiled egg, a soaked sponge, or a lord of flubber. What is iron but a surface for puddings to rest upon? I juxtapose your praise with my strange, serene strength, and I say to you, once cheered, soon booed, the mob is fickle. What we see here is the brush of Goya that has become like a trace anecdote where knots need be finished to be fully understood. This is a painting of a close-run thing, like your hairline or lower brow. It is two greats making very little small talk. It is a diagram of the English peerage system. Let me give you a quick tour of a real face. First, we see the crocodile of good breeding and self-fulfilled prophecies. Then we see the call for the horse. Where is my Copenhagen? Third, we see how good help is so hard to find. And fourth, we can just discern the garment of the peasant. It is your best. It is just beneath your clothes. Finally, the eye that sees Goya, the master chinchilla, how he face paints. Old James Broadbent or Kempton Cannon Bunton can steal anything he likes. He can steal my contact lenses, he can steal my best brief underpants, he can steal this vision of Lord Wellington. He'll still be weak and temporary and made of flesh, not strong and eternal and made of iron. Thank you.
We're in room 44, we've just moved from next door, and we're going to focus on this painting here. I'm not sure how many of you, again, like our Duke of Wellington painting, how many of you are familiar with this painting, but I'm presuming, yeah, many of you are. People are putting their hands up. And this work here, this was a real trapeze artist, a real trapeze aerialist artist. This painting, her stage name, Miss Lala, that she was born Olga Graf. And what we see here is the artist Degas going to the circus here, the Cirque de Fernando, and he goes on about 4 occasions, and he does quite a few preparatory drawings before he completes his final composition. And Degas was particularly interested in not only circus performers, but also dancers and the kind of complicated movements that we make as humans with our body. And her speciality was actually being held upside down on a trapeze holding a rope, and then the weights being kind of carried by a boy, a woman, a man, and then a firing cannon. So we don't see her doing her kind of speciality act, but what we see here is her being suspended up to the ceiling by this pulley here, with this rope between her teeth. And this was a special dental appliance in which to have the rope there. But it's almost, when we look at this work, it's almost as if Miss Lala and the building, the beams and the girders behind are kind of merged together. And where other artists such as George Sura may have shown us that performers in action are actually seeing the audience's response to it, it's almost as if we're here sitting with the audience as well. And I think what's super interesting about this is that we don't see her face. We don't actually see her face. We just have this kind of profile of her, and we don't actually see her face. So what does that do? Does she just become this kind of object here, or is Degas thinking about something else? So I think there's much more with this particular painting. He makes, as I said, quite a few preparatory drawings of her, and actually her skin tone was much darker. Her skin tone in real life is much darker, but for the actual painting, he's chosen to lighten her skin tone. So again, what can we glean from his decision to do that as well? So I'd really just like to say, please obviously don't try this at home. This is pretty dangerous. But also Degas is harking back to paintings from earlier times. And we can also look at this from a kind of religious aspect, and the idea of saints perhaps ascending up to heaven. So I will leave it there. And,
ladies and gents, thank you, Fiona. Rushika Wick.
I'm listening to Candy's static. Fraying occurs at points of tension, where strands become abrasive to each other. Fibers stray outward, like hair on a cat's back. How she sung, unpaid, aged 12, not even clothes to decorate her voice. How the KKK visited her neighbourhood, musicians forced to their knees, made to sing the blues, and everyone cried together afterward. Navy, midnight, cobalt. How she heard from her boy, as the sun beat down, on the radio in their yard, that You've Got the Love was an anthem in '99. Thousands of half-naked British kids dancing. The rope of sisal is composed of 3 strands: sunlight, hands, memory. I'm listening to La Plus Vivante, the living lookout, Venus of the tropics, in the heavens of a 16-sided polygon. How she seeks escape, a clear head, by ascent. The dental contraption clicks against white incisors, a burial disc rattling on ribs. Another tableau. See her inverted hanging. She grips a cannon between teeth. It fires with a tremendous report. Ripples of recoil travel through her cheeks, falling blancmange of burnt sugar. Fibers disintegrate, scorching, tall stalks left in the sun. Perhaps she chose this rope, heard her dead father speak of salt water, so she loosened toward air. My darling, no one can ever really see the sky.
I've made a helicopter space. Pleasure.
Okay, so as you can tell, this room is super noisy, this room is super busy, because there is probably the most famous painting in the National Gallery right here. And sometimes if you're in front of the painting, you do a bit of a straw poll as to where people have come from to see the painting. It's quite literally from all over the world. Every time you ask, somebody is coming from somewhere very interesting and exciting. And it's a real kind of bun fight to get to the painting. So actually, we're in quite a privileged position, being able to stand here this evening and really take that in. But we're not focusing on that painting primarily this evening. We're actually focusing on this one here, which, again, if you come into the gallery regularly, and perhaps if you're a fan of Vincent van Gogh, this is maybe not the painting that you come to see. There might be other ones there. But this painting here for Vincent, I think, was very special and very important. This was painted by him in 1889, and this was just after he had been released from psychiatric care. And actually, when we look at this wall of paintings, they're all painted between 1888 and 1889. And when we think about something like Sunflowers, which was painted just before he cut his ear, and this was painted for his friend Paul Gauguin, who also became a hugely famous artist. He wanted to paint something on the wall that Paul would be, the bedroom wall where Paul would be sleeping. And so this is, he paints, there's a few versions of Sunflowers, but this is one of them. So I think it's quite extraordinary to think that this painting, which is possibly, as I said earlier, one of the most famous in the National Gallery, was painted on somebody's bedroom wall when they came to stay. And unfortunately, when Gauguin came, Vincent was very keen on kind of setting up an artist commune, and they unfortunately fell out, and they never actually saw each other again. They wrote to each other, but they never actually physically met again. So Vincent goes into psychiatric care, is in the hospital, and we know that this is one of the first paintings he makes when he comes out, because he writes to his brother Theo, and he tells him he's going to have a go at creating some still life painting. And so this is one of those first ones there. And I think it probably is the crab, it's probably the same crab, it's probably not two separate crabs, but actually the same crab, just seeing from, being upright, and then we have the other angle there. But just in the sense that the way Vincent has painted this, we really get a sense that we are on the water here, don't we, just with those brush strokes. And of course, Vincent was known for his vibrancy of colour, for that texture, the thickness of the paints, the impasto. And again, this is a real example of that. I just want to, as well as obviously, the sunflowers in the centre there, but the painting right at the far end of the wheat field as well. And this is something he was painting, he does a few versions of this scene, but this is actually while he's in the psychiatric hospital, and he's able to go outside with somebody, looking after him, and he's able to create those paintings. So I think when we look at painting, it's not just about the object that we see in front of us, it's also thinking about the state of mind, the psyche of the artist who is painting them. So I think that's something to think about as well. So on that note, Stephen.
Once again, the magnificent Rushika Wick.
Two crabs. Inside your chest are two crabs. One is called Octavia and the other Violet. Don't ask me how I know this after years with my ears soft against your grilled hot torso. One of them wants more, the other less. I can't tell you which one wants what, because I signed below the coffee stain. You, plural, are all I ever cared about. The fact that you are melting and burning draws me in further. Great distraction from thinking about us and the two crabs laid out on green velvet for a party. All you, plural, ever wanted was to have your shell cracked open, your sweet white flesh shared amongst grapes on a plate. The only way is up, you japed. Always joking. I laughed when you feigned sleep on that flight above the rainforest. the river sluicing green, blue behind half-closed shutters, tiny crabs waving to us, or was it the moon? Their testicles behind their eyes, how honest. Sometimes it is better not to see, but to see through, like a series of digital filters, you said, when I asked about the twins in your chest. I finally cracked your chest open last night. They'd gone. I can see their impressions, you said supportively, wet and green, like abalone shells. I touched tentatively and again, confirming their absence.
Welcome, folks. We like process. I am the yellow boy. And Fiona's here. I'm merely a human placeholder.
In the woods. Okay, lovely. So I just want to say as well, it's so nice to see so many of you on a Friday evening in the gallery. I know the weather was absolutely atrocious, so it's a nice respite to be here surrounded by paintings in the evening. I think particularly in these rooms where the colours really do come alive. So this is quite spectacular, isn't it? I mean, again, this is a very new acquisition of the galleries. This is by a Swiss artist, but I think when you walk into this room, you can't help but your eyes to be drawn to this landscape. It's almost as if you walked into a dream. We were talking earlier, there's something very surreal about this, as if you've woken up, or you're actually, I don't know if you're dreaming or you're subconscious or whatever, but there is something quite extraordinary. So this is Ferdinand Hodler. He was a Swiss artist. So he starts off with his career actually painting landscapes of the kind of alpine scenery for the kind of growing tourist market. And then he very quickly changes tack and he's creating using much more colour and much more vibrancy within these works. And he becomes, I mean, he's one of those artists as well that you actually, it's forgotten about for quite a long period of time. I think it's only in the 1970s that he is revisited again. And we might equate him with artists such as Edvard Munch or Georges Seurat in that same kind of body of work. So if you don't know him, please do a little bit more of an exploration with his work. And he paints all types of things as well. This is not, the only thing that he paints, landscapes, etc. But there is something absolutely magical. And I was saying earlier as well about, I feel as if I've gone into, the film The Wizard of Oz, and you've gone from the kind of black and white moment, and then when we get to kind of Munchkin land, and that's what I feel when we're in here. We can always envisage Dorothy and the Scarecrow and the Lion kind of trundling along this landscape. And so I will leave it there, and you will hand over to...
A round of applause for Stanimir Dimitrov. So first of all, thank you, Fiona, for that beautiful explanation. But I don't believe it. I think this painting depicts my small village in Bulgaria.
Oh,
and I'll tell you what.
And you're going to tell us why.
Where others now occupy. I spent weekends for years. My great-grandparents would watch over us, all cousins would gather and play. Where name a lamp would have to eat it for St. George's Day. Horses were whipped with some little sticks by immature hands lusting for power. Elders rewinded cassettes to dance to songs about white roses and black trains. Then take a nap while we played with a deflated ball on a hill, and that hill led to the village's water tap that made us carry heavy buckets up the same hill. A brick house with 2 extensions, one of which was so low that you could climb on from the side garden. Then you could climb on your grandpa's shoulders and boil chum on sides, while the rest are beheading chickens and tell you that they run around headless. The front yard would allow you to be mischievous, and when no one was watching, to accidentally let the dogs out of their cage and cry about it, because the father was giving you the look. Until the dogs came back from the journey, now hungry and all tired, the little naive you said, "Who are we to trap them?" This is a time and place where you only buy bread with coupons, or meet a centipede on the wall for the first time, or you're trying to fall asleep with a
under an orchestra of crickets, where you can only walk or be in a carriage pulled by a horse, where after years of loving them, you end up eating boiled wheat sprinkled with lemon zest at your great-grandparents' graves, and that love is now foreign, like the blurred faces of the village kids you played with. When you didn't imagine you'd be on an island far away, in front of a computer, buried within tall buildings, saying, "Hello, how may I help you today?" over and over again. When your poems weren't soaked with regret, they were no poems. You were happy singing and dancing at the center of it all. Yet you didn't rely on a painter to remind you of a time when tradition still hadn't left you.
And placing. I had to chase off these natural visitors, not you strange poetry visitors. Thank you so much for being there. Fiona's here, I no longer need to talk.
I know, there's so many people here, it's great. Okay, if you're, I know, so just let them walk over. And we are, of course, talking in the noisiest rooms this evening. These are the most echoing.
Noisy and echoing rooms. Quiet, you non-poetry multitudes. This is poetry. Have you no respect? I love you all, but leave. Now, leave. You may leave now.
Okay. I think everyone's here. Okay. Before we move on to another wonderful poem, I just want to let you see this painting here. Again, I'm sure regular visitors to the gallery will be very familiar with this painting. A work by Henri Rousseau, who was seen as a kind of amateur painter, a Sunday painter. He wasn't taken so seriously. But he creates a series of rainforest works, there's around 20 of them. And he is inspired by the botanical gardens in Paris. And also at this period in botanical gardens, there is also a kind of small zoo where you can see an array of tigers and lions, etc. He does talk about the fact that he actually saw a real tiger in the jungle when he was fighting in the jungles of Mexico, but this was, complete fantasy. And so actually when we look at the tiger here, I think the tiger is a real mishmash, a composition of things that he would have seen, animals perhaps in books, or animals painted by other artists, and then also perhaps those animals in the zoo that he would have seen in Paris as well. But when we looked at the landscape just now at Poplar, I feel here we're in this kind of fantastical environment. You can just imagine, really thinking about the imagination that he had to create this work. And we have an array of vibrant colours, the greens, the oranges, the yellows, etc. We also have to think about, for artists, you don't have to worry about creating your own pigments. There are chemically produced paints that you can now buy and choose. And so this gives the artists much more autonomy in terms of what they're being able to paint and thinking about those colours as well. So this painting, actually, I think there's been a few questions about the role of the tiger there. Is the tiger being surprised by something, or is the tiger surprising something? So if the canvas itself would be extended, what would we see over on this side? Why are the tiger's eyes as wide as anything? Why are his teeth being bared? So what do people think? Just a quick straw poll. Do you think the tiger is surprising somebody? Or do you think the tiger is being surprised? Yeah, okay, so a bit of a majority with that one. And so the title itself, this could have been on the play on the name for lightning as well. But Russo himself is very inspired by Japanese woodblock prints as well, and you can see this kind of mesh in terms of how he's created the paint that you see there, this kind of grey-black mesh and the silver of the light lightning strikes there. I mean, those silver stripes are absolutely extraordinary. But you can see everything moving onto this side. So the storm that's brewing, the wind is blowing here, and the tiger's almost floating. He's not on the ground, and it's almost as if he is going to float away and above this landscape Rousseau has put here. So, on that note,
The amazing Matthew Sokulsky, everybody.
Henry Rousseau, Surprise. Oh, Rousseau, how your mind must have been young when you joined this tiger to the word surprise. And how for the longest time I too was young. How then I not only looked into the painting, but felt beneath my paws the soft undergrowth, caught the wafting scent of damp grass, and cowered beneath the ethereal flashes as they fell. Too, when I wandered further, I found, just beyond the strokes of the brush, a little further than the frame, a home beneath the banana leaves, dry and warm, where the storm was no more than a pitter-patter, where I ate and had my fill and thought I was something of a prince, curling comfortably in a bed, enjoying jungle dreams. It was soon, though, that I was forced out from that world and into another. Hunted by jobs, my skin was stretched for economies, and it was then not until many years later that I returned, only to find the canvas of my world had dried up and closed. Desperate to return its youth, I rushed to libraries and galleries. 10,000 hours I spent surrounded by stacks of books and easels and paint, struggling to create the world that with each daub, with each line, with each thread of knowledge welded to my brain like the bars of a cage, seemed only to drift further and further away. Now, in my old age, I can't get in at all. Each time I try, it is with a pang that I find myself still in this room, festering with people, and wise mouths that say these plants were all actually from the Jardin des Plantes in Paris and are not accurate to a jungle reality at all. All I can do when I hear it is focus on the tiger and wonder, is it even surprised?
thank you to all the poets. I know we have one more poet with Stephen, but just thank you. They've been fantastic. So this painting here, quite a recent acquisition. We think about paintings in the gallery. And this is a painting by the artist, the Spanish artist Sorolla. Anyone who has been to the Royal Academy recently, not sure, maybe not, maybe you're just here in the National Gallery, you will see there are a couple of his paintings there, so I do urge you to go and see those. But he was, when he came to London to be exhibited in the early 1900s, he was billed as the best painter in the world. The best painter in the world.
How I'm billed as a poet.
And you are billed, well, yes. And how many of you have heard of Sorolla? How many of you have heard of Sorolla?
Sorolla, if you're English.
Yes. Okay, so a couple of you, two of you, exactly. So what happens, he becomes, out of touch because there are younger artists, Spanish artists such as Pablo Picasso, who are on the rise. But this is a painting he creates. This is 1910, and he is travelling in the Basque country, and he is frequenting the taverns and the bars. And he gets this big commission to paint a cycle of paintings and looking at traditional Spanish life within Hispanic society in America. And you can see in terms of him visiting these places, the spontaneity, the quickness of the brushstrokes there, capturing these men who are, by all accounts, addicted to alcohol. There is a sadness in this painting, but there is also a very empathetic and compassionate way in which Sorolla has painted them. When you look, and again we were talking about this earlier, on first glance at this painting, it looks like this central figure who is really looking out to us, quite, in a way, quite confrontationally, but it looks as if he is holding that glass aloft, whether to say cheers or whether just to bait us to say something to him. But actually, when you look closely, Sorolla has been extremely clever, and you see that actually it's the arm of the man just behind him who is actually giving him this drink. He is aiding and abetting with this addiction here. And this very closely cropped composition that Sorolla has created, we almost feel as if we could be in that bar with them. On that note,
Fiona, everybody. Amazing Fiona. I'm going to read very loudly, but it's not out of anger. It's because of the people behind. I wish to attract them. And this is dedicated to Joe, who I just met over there. Joe, you're the best. This is The Drunkard, Zaraus, El Borracho, Zaraus by Joaquin Sorolla. Your English. Hey, do you like chili? They sell it in this shop here. If you like, I can come and you can come in and I'll show you how to farm the best chilies, and we'll cut out the middleman. Wouldn't you like to grow your own habanero? I'll tell you something, Joseph. I've been looked at like this since I was bloody born. Before we get into it, let me introduce you to a few of my friends. This is Joey Pouches, this is Son of Schmauler, this is Tina Belunga, this is Joaquin Sorolla, and this is Freddy Krueger. Here is the whaler's cider womb. Here is me, the sick fish drinker. Here is filthy, friendless abattoir alcohol. Here is Hoppy Joey Hope Slayer. Here is the call to forget friends with friends. Here is the real Friday Night Lates. Chilies. I have no pity for the working man. My escapes are down disused mines and broken lifts. My North London dinner party is made of ironic Sunny D. What is it? Taken by a vision. You would not want to be staring at me like that. Men of the painting, could you have not drunk water which floats the boats that makes the ink wet? Could you have not drunk cordial, whose double strength runs like defibrinated blood? Could you have not drunk fizzies, the fantasy liquid of aspartame and sucralose? Stan?
Could you have not drunk appetizer? It's available in just every Tesco for cheaper.
Rush?
Could you not have drunk Vimto, which is from space?
Matt?
Could you not have drunk innocent citrus shield, which is orange, carrot, mandarin, lemon, ginger, and vitamins?
Could you not have drunk Ribena, which apples the most anti-fermentation to keep sober and loved by those you loved, who trusted you? I hate the drunk and all who aid them, and I have no spare jelly beans for the man who paints them too. You are, men of painting, better sober and are thus never thus. So please, if you must get drunk, at least close your eyes to these poor people's passing.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, And thank you so much to students. It's been an absolute delight. And thank you to all of the wonderful poets this evening. You've been spectacular. And thank you to all of you. And hopefully we'll see you very soon. But enjoy the rest of your evening, enjoy the weekend, and don't get wet when you go outside. So thank you very much.